continuation, tapos na tayo sa converging of a reverse curve. This time, with the last type of a reverse curve. This is a diverging tangent. So remember again, with diverging tangent, this is now a type of reverse curve whose back and forward tangents separates the distance of diverges. Okay? This type of reverse curve is similar to converging, but again, they are a reverse in condition. Remember that in converging tangent, the back tangent diverge with the forward tangent. Okay? But with diverging, the forward tangent this time diverge with the backward tangent. Dito tayo ngayon sa example natin with the diverging. So for our example, for the diverging tangents of a reverse curve, two tangent diverge at an angle of 30 degrees. So makukuha na natin yung point of diverging. Then direction of the first tangent is due east. The perpendicular, so ano yung first tangent natin? That is basically your back tangent. The perpendicular distance of PT to the first curve is 116. Perpendicular distance of PT with PC or the first curve is 116.50 meters. The bearing of the common tangent is north of 40 degrees east. So sabi niya kanina, they diverge, the forward and backward tangent diverge at an angle of 30 degrees. Such that PC is, na dito, PC is due east. Let's just say this is your PC. And this is their divergence. Point of divergence at 30 degrees. While the common tangent is at a bearing of north 40 degrees. Ito ngayon yung ating PT. Ay, wala PT. That is our vertex 2 and vertex 1. Then, end ko lang to. And that should serve as our PT. Tapos, anong gagawin natin next is for us to plot our curve. Let's try to identify first our point of reverse curve. That is your PRC. Then the curve here. And another. And so yan na ngayon yung ating reverse curve. Then sabi niya kanina, the perpendicular distance of the PT with the first curve is 116.50 mm. Ito na lang to. Saglit lang. Tapos, that is our radius 1, then radius 2, angle of intersection 1, and another angle of intersection. Angle of intersection 2, radius 2, and radius 2. So sabi niya, the perpendicular distance with PT and the first curve is 116.50. 116.50. Yeah. Then this is 40. So how are we going to solve the tawag na dito, following? So the first question was to compute for the central angle of the first curve. If the reverse curve is to connect these two tangents, determine the common radius of the first curve. The common radius of the first curve. The common radius of the curve. So pag sinabing common radius, meaning R1 will be equal to R2. So kailangan lang nating isolve yung equivalent radius nila. Then compute for the stationing of PT if PC is at 10 plus 620. So PC daw has a station of 10 plus 620. So for letter A, the central angle of the first curve. Napakadali lang nung letter A. Solve natin kaagad yan. Paki-screenshot po muna yung figure para diretso ako doon sa solution. Or i-drawing nyo na yung figure sa scratch paper. Para madali nyo makita, no? So for our letter A question, the angle of intersection of the first curve. For the angle of intersection of the first curve, that is the same as the point of intersection for vertex 1. Or the central angle 1, I1. So basically, I1 is what? From the given bearing was 40 or north of 40 degrees east. That is, on this quarter, 90 degrees. Minus 40 degrees, which leaves us to our answer for letter A, which is the central angle of the first curve. That is our answer for letter A, which is 50 degrees. No? So, kung 50 degrees yan, and this is also 90 degrees, and this is 50 degrees, this section will then be equal to 130 degrees. So with that note, we can immediately solve for the angle of intersection of the second curve. Right? Kasi nakuha naman na natin yung point of divergence or angle of divergence, which is 30 degrees. So by doing so, I2 is simply equal to 180 degrees minus 130 degrees minus 30 degrees, which leaves us to the angle of intersection for the second curve. That is 160 minus 180, that is 20 degrees. Okay? So kung 20 degrees yan, gawa tayo ng simple arithmetic, trigonometric figures dito for us to solve for the common radius. So kung common radius, yan, most likely, ito yung ating R1 for the common radius. Yan. Yan. Ito yung ating R. Yan. Common radius. So, kung common radius, pwede nating gawan ng simple dissection of triangles. Let's just say this is your H1, this is your A. This is your H3, 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 then this is your H, this is your B, and this is your H2. Okay? Simplify lang natin yung ating figures. For us to get the common radius, notice the common radius is the summation of A plus H1 is equal to the common radius. And A plus B, basically the distance of the tangent of the first curve with the second curve. That is 116.50. 116.50 meters. Okay? So using this triangle, okay? Using that triangle, extract lang natin. Alam naman na natin yung I1, which is 50 degrees. R, then H1. We can derive an equation that will serve as part of our solution in solving the radius. So H1 over R is simply cosine 50 degrees, or H1 is equal to R cosine 50 degrees. Knowing that A plus H1 is equal to R, such that R is equal now to A plus H1. Ano yung H1? That is R cosine 50 degrees. Or A is now equal to R times 1 minus cosine 50 degrees. Diba? Then, if we finally solve A plus B, we've solved A and B, or derive the equation for B, we can simply solve for the radius. Ngayon, kunin naman natin yung para sa B. Notice, B is simply equal to H3 minus H2. So, B is equal to H3 minus H2. Yeah? Where this triangle is the same as I1. The same, this angle has the same of, what they call this, 50 degrees. And if I2 is 20 degrees, therefore this one is 30. So H3 is R, H3, 30 degrees. So H3 is then equal to R cosine 30 degrees. Then, for the next one, H2, ito naman yung triangle natin sa H2. H2, parehas lang dito sa triangle nung pinagkuhunan natin ng H1. So basically, that is also 50 degrees. Ilabas natin yung triangle na yan. H2R, then 50 degrees. Okay? So H2 is now equal to R cosine 50 degree. Thus, B is equal to H3 minus H2, or R equal, B equal to R times cosine 30 degrees minus cosine 50 degrees. Okay? So, meron na tayong A and B. Thus, A plus B is the distance of the first tangent with the next tangent, or with the previous back tangent of 116.50 meters. So substituting A plus B equal to 116.50 with the known derived equation for A and B. That is A of R times 1 minus cosine 50 degrees plus B of R cosine 30 degrees minus cosine 50 degrees equal to 116.50. Okay? Then simplify. Kaya na mag-simplify. R is now equal to 200.706 meters. So, eto ngayon yung ating answer for letter B. Answer for letter B, or the common radius of the given diverging curve. Nagets po ba kung saan nakuha yung mga figure ng triangles natin? Paglaruan nyo lang yung reverse curve ho, tapos hati-hatiin nyo lang yung triangles nyo. But most likely, ito yung ating general formula in computing the common radius of a diverging curve having an equal radii. Parang na-derive lang natin siya by answering the problem. Okay, the next one will be the computation of the station of PT if PC is 10, 6, 20. So, ano natin gagawin yan? We're going to do that. Station PT, basically station PC plus the length of an arch of the first curve plus the length of the arch of the second curve. So first, we need to solve the length of the arch of the first curve, which is equal now to the angle of intersection of the first curve times the radius of the first curve. But given that we have an equal radius or common radius, that is simply times R, pi over 180 degrees. Same goes with LC2, angle of intersection of the second curve, the radius, over 180 degrees. Substitute all known values. I1 was computed as 50 degrees. R is 200.706 meters. And pi over 180 degrees. Gives us the length of the first arch. Length of the first arch is equal now to 175.149 meters. Okay? Next one. Ano yung ating next angle of intersection sa second curve? 20 degrees. Common radius 200.706. Then pi over 180 degrees. Which leaves us to the length of the second arch, which is 70.060 meters. Substitute lang natin yan dito. Station PT will now be equal to station PC of 10 plus 620 plus length of the arch of the first curve, 175.149, plus the length of the second arch of the second curve. So station PT will now be equal to 865.209 meters. Okay? 865. Bakit 865 yan? 0.209 meters. Kalimutan ko yung 10. So 10 plus 865.209. So station PT is 10 of 865.209. Answer to letter C. So yan lang naman po yung diverging. So basically plain trigonometric analysis lang po lahat yan. Oh. Puro triangle lang yan. Kayang-kaya nyo naman. Question for diverging. Concerns? Hello? Nasundan naman yung pagkuha natin ng H1, 2, and 3. Then yung A plus B. Hello? Hello? Naririnig po ba? Naintindihan? So sana naintindihan ninyo yung mga triangles natin dyan. Basically, trigo lang naman yan. No? Napakadali. The next stop after reverse curve, let's try to discuss circular curves.